Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 253. Today we're talking all about self-directed learning. Now, we've talked about self-directed learning off and on throughout this podcast and on the website before, and it is a large focus of my brand new book that comes out, actually it came out yesterday officially as of this recording. As of the day that this episode is airing live, it came out yesterday, so you can buy the Homeschool Advantage, a child-focused approach to raising lifelong learners, anywhere books are sold. And be sure to let me know if you bought it and if you read it and what you thought. Reviews are always great when you leave a review at the bookshop where you bought it, like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever. It lets booksellers know that they should order more copies. It also lets potential readers know that it's a book worth reading. So reviews help a ton. So I appreciate any review you're willing to give. All right, we're gonna get on with today's episode. Before we do, special shout out and thanks to CTC Math, our season-long sponsors. We appreciate them so very much. You'll hear more about them later during this episode. And also thanks to Lexercise. You're gonna hear about them right now. Lexercise is a great program and you should definitely check them out. So thanks for sponsoring CTC and Lexercise. Let's get on with today's episode. Are you a homeschooling parent with a child struggling with reading, writing, or spelling? Lexercise can help. Their online platform offers self-paced learning and expert instruction customized to your child's needs, all based on the Orton-Gillingham approach. We used Lexercise back when Logan was first diagnosed with dyslexia when she was, like 8 or 9. And oh my goodness, the personalized support they gave us, the attention to detail, the program itself was just incredible. And Logan grew leaps and bounds. I'm so proud to have them as a sponsor for the podcast right now because more people need to know about their services. You can join thousands of families who have seen effective results, including mine, and have unlocked their child's love of learning. Visit Lexercise.com/learners for a free learning disabilities screener and to learn more about their programs. Check them out and let me know what you think. Ask me if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them or direct you to my contacts at Lexercise. But if you have a kiddo who struggles with reading, writing, or spelling, you definitely want to check out Lexercise.com/learners and see what they can offer you. All right, let's get on with today's episode. Okay, so self-directed learning. First of all, I started learning more and more about self-directed learning a couple of years ago. Let me backtrack. So when I first started homeschooling, some of you know my story. We came into it kicking and screaming a little bit under duress. My husband and I both have teaching backgrounds, and teaching in a classroom is very different from teaching at home. And so there was a learning curve. As I got more and more into it, so we're in our 15th, maybe 16th year. I think we're entering our 16th year of homeschooling. This coming fall will be our 16th year. As I've gotten more and more into homeschooling and watching other families do it, talking to thousands of families around the country and out of this country actually, who have homeschooled in various styles, one of the threads that comes up again and again is that parents tend to get more relaxed as homeschooling goes on, right? Because they get more comfortable. They start to value giving their kids more autonomy and a say in their learning. They see the benefits of that. And also, they start to focus more on the individual child. One of the beauties of homeschooling is we get to see each kid in front of us for who they are and who they're put on this earth to be. And we get to foster that kind of learning within them by giving them more of what they truly need to be successful in whatever it is they're going to go into. And so I talk a lot about a child-focused approach to learning in my upcoming book, or in the book that's released now this week. and how we can look at the individual child and figure out what it is they need and give them more of that. Self-direction and autonomy they come into play when it comes to that. We want to give our kids more of a say in their own learning. And this can look different for a lot of people. So some people will embrace it in a way that looks more like unschooling, where they let their kids make all of the decisions when it comes to what they're going to be learning and doing, and then just gives them the resources that they need to fulfill their goals. It could look like designing an approach to curriculum based on what you know your kids have expressed or demonstrated that they want to learn more of, and then you have a little bit more say in what they're learning or how they're learning those different things. Regardless, self-direction is important to start giving our kids the older they get and the more into homeschooling they get. The longer we do it, the more that we want to give our kids autonomy and a say in what they're doing. There was a really good book that I read years ago, The Self-Driven Child: The Science and Sense of Giving Your Kids More Control Over Their Lives by Dr. William Stixrud, I think is how you pronounce it, and Ned Johnson. It's a great book. It's a really great book, and they've written additional books since then. But I read that book back in 2018, and it really just hit home and inspired me to do more of that, give my kids more of a say in their learning. I also read more and more of Peter Gray's work. Peter Gray is definitely a proponent of unschooling, and I've had him on the podcast before. We'll link to that past episode in the show notes. But there's plenty of research that supports giving our children a say in what they're learning and how they're learning it builds more motivated and intrinsic learners and helps them be successful. For neurodivergent kids, particularly those who are gifted or twice exceptional, it's really crucial to give them a say in what they're learning. It's important to show them other things that they maybe won't like to do as much so that they know how to handle things, but it's important to spend more of their time on the things that mean something to them because they'll be more prone to be successful and be motivated to get work done. I'll give you an example, a concrete example. My daughter, who is a performing arts kid, I've talked about her before. She is planning to pursue a BFA in musical theater, a performance-based degree that requires auditions. And so most of her schooling has been centered around her fine arts training. She's done lots and lots of master classes, ones and coaching sessions and classes. She's also done a tremendous amount of reading. She's fascinated by history, so she's dove into all sorts of history podcasts and video essays and things like that. But one of the things that she shies away from and does not enjoy very much are tests and checking boxes, which, as we all know as adults, like sometimes you have to check a box, right? Whether it's in your work environment, whether it's in a class you have to take, some training to go on with your job. Now, when she does eventually make a career in the performing arts, she's not going to be taking a lot of tests or doing a lot of things that require box checking. She'll be doing some because you have to fill out audition information and applications and things like that. But to get her used to a different aspect of learning, she is taking a summer class at our local community college as a dual enrolled student. And she's enjoying the intellectual discussions. She's enjoying the projects. She's enjoying the assignments to some degree. You know, some of it she laments that this is just a bunch of, in her words, box checking. She is her mother's daughter after all. And she is not enjoying the quizzes and the timed tests that you have to take because she feels, rightfully so, that it's an arbitrary and artificial way to measure what you've learned, especially since it's an online class, they are allowed to use books and other resources to find their answers. And so, in her words, what's the point? And then on top of it, she argues that while the professor requires them and uses it as a measuring point in their rubric to have perfect grammar, spelling, punctuation, and all of that, the tests are riddled with typos because, as anybody knows who's gone through higher education, professors or their assistants make up these quizzes and then they just keep them forever and ever, right? They often don't ever revise them unless there's a major change in their industry. And which is why like Quizlet and some of those other platforms that give you resources to study for these tests and things exist because the questions don't really change. And so she argues that while these tests are riddled with typos and misspellings and vague language, that it's hypocrisy to hold the students accountable for keeping their grammar good in all of the things that they write and do. And she's right. She's absolutely right. That hypocrisy is something and is worthy of calling out. But also, sometimes you just need to jump through that hoop to make the grade, and that's what we're learning in that situation. This is where neurodivergent kids, particularly, again, those who are gifted or twice exceptional, struggle in a traditional education setting. So as my kids get older and acknowledge that they want to pursue something in higher education, if they do, one of my kids is an entrepreneur and chose not to go to college, we want to prepare them for all of those eventualities, especially when it's going to be something they're going to have difficulty with because they are an outside the box thinker. In this episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about what self-directed learning is and some benefits, also some practical ways that you can start implementing it, because I want to empower you. I want you to think about the benefits and be empowered to try to incorporate some self-direction in your homeschool as we approach this coming year so that your kids can gain those benefits from being in this alternative education environment. So what is self-directed learning? It's a child-centered approach where kids take ownership of their own education. The emphasis is on curiosity, exploration, problem solving, and diving deeply into passions and interests, and really focusing on the things that they want to learn more about. There's a little bit of a difference. I'm not talking about just complete unstructured free time. Self-directed learning is when they're having a say in how and what they're going to learn. So if your kid is someone who learns better through videos, audios, hands-on activities and exercises, that could be an area in which they direct more of their learning. If they learn better by reading books and summarizing what they've learned, then they can own that and have more opportunities for that kind of learning. Unstructured free time is great, and I think that there's a value and a place in true unschooling that's done well. And so we want to make sure that we're balancing that. We're not like just saying, okay, you're on your own. We are supporting them. I highly recommend, if you haven't read that book, The Self-Driven Child, reading it or listening to it on audio. Again, I'll link to it in the show notes, but it really does a good job of helping you differentiate between giving your kids free rein and just letting them go and helping to guide them and put the right kinds of resources in their path, setting clear expectations and boundaries within their learning environment and within your home and your homeschool. When we truly embrace that kind of self-directed learning for our neurodivergent kids, we are going to see some wonderful benefits. We're going to see increased motivation and engagement. Kids who pursue their interests with passion and with opportunity, because we're opening up this white space to them, they learn more deeply. They're able to fully embrace whatever topic it is that they're interested in, and they have a deeper understanding of what it is they're learning. For example, let's talk about a little kid who is obsessed with dinosaurs. Maybe they have ADHD and they hyperfixate, they perseverate on topics. If we can embrace that and bring in some of their reading and their writing and their history and their science into a dinosaur kind of theme, then they can really truly embrace a learning of paleontology and classification and deeper science terms and understandings, and they can reach out and talk with mentors in the field and just be super passionate. Maybe they'll go into paleontology. Maybe that interest will wane and they'll hyperfixate on something else and you'll shift gears. But the foundation that they learn within that deep dive into dinosaurs and paleontology spreads through other subject areas. So this is where we need to look at what our kids are doing with a lens of what actually are they doing. If they're journaling about the dinosaurs they're learning about and drawing pictures, they're doing nature journaling, they're doing figure study, they're writing about it, right? So they're putting details in, they're making observations and inferences, they're looking at historical time periods and scientific time periods, they're comparing between different whatever. This was a bad example for me to choose because I don't know all of those different things. I never had a kid who hyperfixated on that. I could tell you trains in my sleep, which would have been a better choice for me to talk about. But my point is, They are doing more than playing with dinosaurs, especially when we guide them and give them resources to learn deeper. When our kids are more self-directed, they also have an improved self-esteem and confidence. Children develop a sense of agency and competence when they are able to focus on the things that they love. For example, maybe we have an autistic kiddo who struggles with social skills. They can build confidence through independent projects. They can latch on to the things that they're interested in to use as conversation starters. Now, my oldest is not autistic, but he had tremendous social anxiety when he was young and had a difficulty engaging in conversations in social situations. And one of the things that he was very interested in when he was young was Rubik's Cubes and all sorts of the different cubing options. And he would solve them with his eyes closed, behind his back, whatever, as he learned the different algorithms. And everybody is fascinated, frankly, by somebody who can solve a Rubik's Cube. And it was a great entry point into a lot of different conversations for him. So he was able to go up to somebody that he was talking to and say, hey, will you mess this up for me? And they'd be like, you can't solve that. And he'd solve it. And then they'd have a great conversation as a result of it. We can give our kids a chance to dive into something that might seem off base, but could actually lead to some greater social interactions and social skills. Our kids who have a self-directed learning approach often have increased creativity. They're able to problem solve better. They can take advantage of the open-ended exploration that we're giving them an opportunity to do and grow their innovative thinking skills and their creative thinking skills and their curiosity. For example, a kiddo who has dyslexia but excels in visual arts or is interested in them can develop problem-solving strategies for some of the things that they're doing and show a representation of the problems that they're solving through modeling and building. Gives them opportunities to showcase their work in different ways. And when our kids are bought in and they're driving their own education, they actually have better time management skills and organization. Our kids struggle with executive function skills, but when we give them autonomy over what they're learning and the learning is meaningful to them, they are better able to manage their time because it means something. Kids learn to prioritize their tasks and manage their time effectively when it means something to them. So, for example, a kiddo, again, maybe who has ADHD or is twice exceptional in some way, can improve their focus by setting personal goals and then creating a structured learning environment around how they're going to reach those goals. This still can be difficult, but they're more motivated to organize themselves because they have an end goal in mind. So if you've been a listener of the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about CTC Math for the last couple of years. They have been supportive sponsors of the podcast, and as I've told you before, I'm a customer. My kids use CTC Math in their homeschool. I am a paying subscriber and have been for a number of years, even before CTC sponsored the podcast. I am a raving fan, and I will continue talking about their resources and their program until long after I'm done homeschooling, because I think it's really versatile for so many different types of families, whether your kids are super strong in an area or super weak in an area of math. It allows you to customize their education when it comes to math. I've talked to so many families over the years, but I want to share with you a message that I received from Sandy, a longtime listener who was content in what they were using until, again, they weren't, and they switched over to CTC Math based on a recommendation that they'd heard on the podcast. Sandy writes, "We too started using CTC Math following your recommendation, Colleen. One of my sons is so dedicated. Then, after watching over his shoulder, my other son started using it too. They both now do an hour each workday by choice. I even enjoy it myself. I do the lessons with them, which is a handy brush up, and will occasionally do some of the algebra lessons ahead of time. Math was not my strong suit in school, but now I love it, and I wish the program had been available in the 80s. Too many people think they're terrible at math, but I truly believe we all just need a method of learning that suits us. CTC Math seems to work for all three of us." So check out ctcmath.com or go to the link over in the show notes for this episode and click on it to go over there and see the offer that they have for podcast listeners. You don't have to just take my word for it. You can take Sandy's as well. CTC is a great program and could be a wonderful benefit for your homeschool. All right, let's get back to today's episode. Okay, so let's talk about some ways that we can incorporate self-directed learning by the different ages. So if your kiddo is in the elementary school years, like K through 6, let's say, we can focus more on exploration and interest-based learning, that child-focused approach that I talk about in the Homeschool Advantage. For example, our kids could create a nature journal based on their outdoor explorations. They can build and code robots. They can experiment in the kitchen and try different recipes and experiment with cooking and baking. Those kinds of explorations are really good for younger kids. This is where you can really take advantage of strewing and put out different things that might pique their interest or pique an interest in a new hobby or skill. And there's a whole series on strewing on my website, so we'll make sure that we link to that in the show notes. In the middle school years, so 7 to 9, let's say, this is where your kids can focus more on like project-based learning, independent research. They can start to dive deeper into the things that they're truly interested in, and see potentially what kinds of career opportunities could come from it. My younger daughter just finished 8th grade and will be entering high school years next year. And this summer, she did some volunteer work. She worked 1 to 2 6-hour shifts as a teen volunteer at the zoo all summer long and was exposed to all sorts of different career options that are related to zoo work because she's always wanted to work at a zoo. And that whole independent research and project-based learning came into play. And now she's got a direction that she wants to go as we enter high school. So for example, you could get your kids involved in volunteer opportunities like I just talked about. Maybe they can play and engage in a historical reenactment or go see some of those like parks that do historical reenactments. They can design and conduct science experiments, write, publish short stories or poems. Lots of different opportunities for writers and literature-based kiddos to try out some of these skills and see what they might be interested in. High school years, we can encourage more self-guided research and exploration of their passion so they can see what they might want to do once they get out of their school years. So if they're arts-based, maybe they can start developing a portfolio for when college applications come around. They can create a personal website or blog or social media. They can shadow professionals in the different career fields that they're interested in. They can, again, do volunteer work. My older daughter, whom I've already talked about and is planning to pursue a BFA in musical theater, volunteers for 2 classes a week at a local fine arts center as an assistant teacher in a preschool acting class and loves it and says that oftentimes performers need to take breaks when they have kids or they retire from the stage so that they can stay at home with their children for a while. And that might be something she wants to do, teach preschool acting classes. She's really enjoying it. So you can help them follow those interests in different ways as they're in their high school years trying to figure it out. Our biggest job as parents who are trying to incorporate a more self-directed approach to our kids' learning is to shift our mindset, is to let go of the idea that we have to control every aspect of our homeschool and trust the process and trust our kids. We need to remember that it's hard. It's okay that it's hard to embrace the idea of letting our kids take control of their own learning because we care so much. We don't want to miss anything and we don't want them to miss anything. But it is important to trust our kids, especially as they're getting older, because this will build a stronger relationship between us. When we let our kids know that we trust them to make some of these decisions and we trust that they know the direction they want their lives to go in, we are stronger as a whole and we're able to support them and they know they can come to us. We've talked a lot on this podcast about being our kids' safe space, and this is just another aspect of this. Some practical ideas for letting go of that control is, as a parent, is to really start small. Begin with small periods of self-directed learning. If you're feeling called to this type of approach, a more child-focused approach, a more self-directed approach, just start small. Begin with some short periods of it. Choose a subject. If you are locked in right now to having your subjects separate, choose one subject that you let your kids decide on. The content areas are the easiest way to start doing this because it doesn't really matter what order your kids learn about space science versus dinosaur science versus electricity and magnetism. So let them choose the direction they want to learn in those areas and just begin. And while you're doing that, provide guidance and support. Offer resources, help them find things if they need to, encourage them, remind them that they're smart and they're capable and they can do it and you have faith in them. Then celebrate their successes. Recognize and appreciate your kiddos' achievements. Tell them how great they are. If you're not telling them how great they are, nobody is telling them. We want to be their biggest cheerleader. We want to spend more time praising our kids than correcting our kids because we want them to know we think that they're the best people out there. Create a supportive learning environment in your home. Provide the necessary materials and spaces and things so that they can be self-directed. Take them to the library. Provide lots of books. Provide streaming resources for them. Have subscriptions to different streaming programs like Curiosity Stream or just online. Encourage them to use places like Khan Academy or other resources. And then give them the time to experiment and explore those. Build a community. Connect with other homeschooling parents for support and ideas. We've got a community. I've talked about it before, the Learners Lab. It is open. You can go join. You can join for just a month to see if you like it. And then if you don't or you're not sure, just cancel and rejoin again later if you want to try. Or you can join for a month, decide you love it, and then upgrade to an annual membership or a lifetime membership. So the information about that is over on the show notes. So you can check that out. Or you can just go to raisinglifelonglearners.com and click on the lab button in the top of the toolbar. Here's the thing. Self-directed learning for neurodivergent kids it's an amazing tool in your toolbox. It gives them the trust that they need to be successful and takes advantage of their unique brains and how they're wired. Our kids' brains are wired to focus on things that they are passionate and interested in, and this is a chance to really take advantage of that. Embrace this approach for your kids, trust their abilities, and there are a bunch of resources on the show notes for this episode because, like I said, I've talked about this before. There are some really great books out there about this, including mine, my new one. And in the Learners Lab, coming up in the final quarter of this year, we are going to be doing a book club that goes chapter by chapter of my new book. If you buy the book and join the Learners Lab, we're going to dive deeply into this topic and really do some study on it and help set each other up for success. Whether you join our community or not, find other people that can support you in this idea of being more self-directed in your homeschooling. All right. If you've got specific questions about how to implement that in your home, in your homeschool, in your kids' learning plans, just shoot me a message on the show notes for this episode and all episodes. There is a link to our contact form, which has a voicemail widget as well as an email widget, and you can just send me a message and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And if you're a member of the Learners Lab and you're listening to this podcast, you know you can DM me anytime. I answer the DMs more quickly than my emails. So if I'm behind in DMs, you know I'm really behind in emails and voicemails. So that is the best place to get in touch with me. But then again, if you're not a member, you can reach me through my website. Okay, we're going to be back next week. Same time, same place with another interview. And I know you're going to love this one. In the meantime, enjoy your kids. Really embrace their interests and their passions. You have cool people living with you. Get to know them. Get to know what drives them. And then help them capitalize on those interests so they can be the best versions of themselves. You are an amazing parent, and you are the exact right parent for the kids that you have. You already have all the tools to be successful and to help them grow into the amazing people they're meant to be. You've got this. I'll help. Reach out anytime, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great week, and enjoy those kids. Bye for now.